Welcome to this edition of Business Today. I'm Ben Thompson, and we're going to start, though, with the very latest on that tariff war, because President Trump is ratcheting up pressure on India over its dealings with Russia. In a social media post on Monday, President Trump said that he plans to substantially raise tariffs on the import of goods from India because of its purchases of Russian oil. India says it's being unfairly targeted. Now the move marks the latest in a round of escalation between Washington and Delhi, as the two sides failed to reach a trade agreement ahead of last week's deadline. Well, India now faces a blanket 25% levy on goods going into the United States. The Trump administration has cited a refusal from Prime Minister Modi's government to change its policy on Russia. Now, Russia is India's biggest supplier of oil. India buys 70% of Russian crude exports. That was last year alone. So our India business correspondent, Davina Gupta, has the latest now on that reaction from Delhi.
Well, it's been reported in the newspapers as well, because it's the strongest statement yet from India. It says that it's unjustified attack from the US. It said that it's unreasonable. And India is essentially hitting back in a stronger tone than the conciliatory tone we've seen when it's dealing with the US over a trade agreement. It said two things. First, cheaper oil from Russia is essential for India's billion-plus population to keep energy prices low. The second thing it's saying is also throwing back the ball sort of in the US's court, because it said that even the US is buying fertilizers and critical minerals like uranium and palladium from Russia for its own industries of electric vehicles and nuclear energy. So this kind of targeted attack on India is unjustified in that sense. And India is trying to negotiate a trade deal with the US. It's kept its dairy sector and agriculture sector quite inaccessible right now with high tariffs. It doesn't want the US to supply genetically modified foods into India to protect its domestic producers. And that's where this discontent is also stemming from. So we'll have to see how these reciprocal tariffs will be levied and how much of them will be levied on India, which President Trump has talked about.
Davina Gupta there. Now let's talk to Professor Partha Chatterjee, who's from Shiv Nadar University in Uttar Pradesh. Good to have you here. And India calling this unjustified. But if you look at some of the numbers, I mean, this is straight out of the Trump playbook, isn't it? This is about effecting political change based on economics and tariffs.
That's absolutely right. I think, this round of trade negotiations that Trump is doing is much more than just trade negotiations. And in fact, if you look at all the trade deals that has happened so far, there are other non-trade components that's there, including with the Europe or Japan, which is about investment. But I think in most other cases, Trump has other objectives also, right? In this case, he is definitely trying to put India into a position where it brings down the purchase of oil from Russia, which India is obviously reluctant to do given the price pressure that it will face if it does so.
Yes, and why is it price pressure? I mean, it's a staggering number. 70% of Russian crude exports last year went to India. This is more than just a reliance or a dependence. I mean, that is a vast majority of what it buys to power its economy. Is it because it is cheaper? Yeah,
so India did buy some oil from Russia, but Russia was not the biggest supplier of oil to India. But since the Ukraine war, that has changed. India has found a way to buy Russian oil, and definitely, in a situation where the inflation was high globally, that has helped. And I think right now, India is afraid that if it moves away from that, then the price of oil can shoot up, and then, this trajectory where the interest rates are being cut, that might be impacted. And the Indian government really wants the interest rates to fall and, the growth to increase even further. India is growing at about 6%. India probably needs to grow at about 8%. So all these considerations are there in trying to think about where to get oil from and how to, position India in this whole trade war. Because remember, US is the largest trade partner for India in merchandise and many other services.
Yeah, there's a potential here, though, for a downward spiral, isn't there? That India is buying this oil because it is cheaper. It's doing so to avoid pushing up prices domestically in India and derailing the economy. But at the same time, if Mr. Trump comes good on that promise to substantially raise tariffs, that also has a huge knock-on effect on the economy. And therefore, the Prime Minister and his government will have to decide which side they are on here.
Absolutely. I don't think it's a very easy situation. India has always maintained a non-aligned position for long. But in fact, over the last few years, it has moved closer to US. Now, suddenly it finds in this position where it's being pushed away from US and much towards Russia and China. India has had some disputes with China, and it's in a situation where it doesn't know how to align with these countries very closely either. So that's one of the considerations. The other consideration, as you mentioned, is about the economics of it. Clearly, there are two sides of it. If the tariff is too high, then trade will be impacted, and particularly in sectors like textile, right, which employs a lot of people. Wow. And that's not going to be politically very nice for the government either. On the other hand, the price pressure that we talked about is something that they need to consider also. So it's not really very easy or clear that what should be done.
Yes, we will follow this closely. Professor Chatterjee, good to have you with us there from Shiv Nara University in Uttar Pradesh. Thank you. Now, let's return to the theme of AI. It's a consistent theme, but we know it has the power to change our lives and our jobs. And one of the newest